Hello, brothers and sisters. Thank you so much for volunteering to tutor this semester or at least be available. I want to thank you for being willing to give up some of your time to help your fellow students. What you're offering to do is really valuable for people, especially for people that want to go into vocational ministry. It's really important for people to be able to access the word in the original languages, and so you're providing a valuable service to them. And so thank you for doing that for them. So here's just a couple of thoughts as we try to connect you with people to do some tutoring. These are things I've come up with just from tutoring myself for a number of years now, and things that you might find helpful as you're interacting with students. So one of the things that I might encourage you to do is when you're meeting with students, go ahead and when you first meet with them, ask them what they're having a hard time with. Maybe they're just going to say, hey, I just need help with, figuring out ways to memorize my paradigms or whatever. And so feel free to just ask them and see what you can do to help them. But I also want to encourage you to also see on your own where you think maybe they're struggling. Every once in a while, people will come in and they'll want some help, but they aren't really where they think the problem isn't necessarily where the problem is. So, for example, one of the things that frequently happens is that people don't know how to memorize their paradigms or haven't kept up with their paradigms or vocabulary, and they're saying, "Oh, it's just too hard. I just don't understand it." You start asking them some questions, and you realize, well, actually, they understand it perfectly fine. They've just forgotten all their paradigms, and they can't understand anything whenever they're working on some translations. So I usually try to feel them out a little bit and see if maybe they're I'll ask them some questions like so. I'll say, so the idea of cases makes sense to you, that it's the endings that determine the function in the sentence, etc., and just try to find out from them, and then I'll try to have them do a little bit of translation for me, so I can see what their method for doing it is. So that'll give you a good sense of where they're at. There's almost always two particular problems that people have. One is that either they don't comprehend the material. That is, the moving to a new language, the ideas are strange to them, and so they just really can't wrap their mind around them. This may be in the Greek. In Greek, it might be a matter of, for example, like with cases or inflection on verbs. You might be something like that. If that's the case, then a lot of times what I'll do is I'll use analogies from English to illuminate the other language. So, for example, with Greek, I'll say, so you get that, nominative means the subject and things like that, and they'll say, not really. So I'll say, well, in the sentence, the boy hit the ball. Who's doing the action? They'll say, well, the boy. I'll say, how do you know? Say because it comes before the verb, and I'll say yes. So English. We indicate who's doing the action by where it's at in the sentence. Now we have to totally switch that out for Greek, because in Greek it's going to be the ending on the word that tells you who's doing it. Okay, so if they can get the idea that somehow every language indicates who's doing the action, and in Greek they do it by the endings, then that'll help them out. So using analogies with English or whatever other languages they might know is always really helpful. So that's the one problem, is that sometimes they'll have a hard time with just understanding the concepts, and then you just illuminate it with analogies or try to talk it through with them or explain it however you best can. The other one is that people will be having trouble because they are having a hard time memorizing the paradigms or memorizing the vocabulary. Sometimes they'll look at a sentence and they'll say, I really don't know what's going on there. And it's because they don't understand that they have to memorize, for example, the paradigm chart and be able to pull it up exactly and be able to, not only just memorize it for the quiz, but actually have it for, the rest of their Greek studies. So sometimes they'll maybe say, yeah, I just can't seem to get them quick enough. So I've compiled a list of memorization strategies on the Southeastern Library website. If you go to library.sebts.edu and then you go to research guides on the front page there. There's a research guide called How to Learn Biblical Languages or Learning Biblical Languages or something like that. And if you go there, one of the tabs is language learning strategies or strategies for memorization or something like that. So I've listed a number of strategies there you're welcome to use. Obviously, you have your own strategies that you've used and have worked for you, so feel free to recommend them. I'm not saying you have to do it the way that I would do it, but I'm just giving you some suggestions so that you have some resources as you're getting ready to help people. So also don't feel bad about trying to ask them to do giving them an assignment. So for example, if you are working with a student and they're getting really far behind, and you just say, listen, this week you have got to have the definite article memorized. Don't feel bad about holding them accountable for it, because sometimes people will be struggling, but they'll have a hard time. It's the discipline's the problem, so if they come back in the next week, I mean, you can explain it all you want, but unless they actually go home and memorize it, there's nothing really else you can do to help them. So you can just say, listen, I'm happy to help you as much as I can. However, you'll have to actually do the work yourself. So it's up to you to get the paradigm memorized. Here's some strategies, but you really need to memorize that before we meet again. So don't feel bad about doing that, especially if you get the sense that maybe the discipline is the problem spot for them. It's not comprehension, but just sitting down and spending the time to do it. So that's something just to think about. Those are just a few recommendations. If there's anything I can do to be a help to you, my email address is nkelley, Kelley, @sebts.edu. You can get me on Facebook or the Biblical Languages for Everyone Facebook page. And please feel free to let me know if I can help at all. But just thought we'd give you some suggestions for tutoring students. Thank you again for investing your time in others. I hope this is a blessing to you and that it helps you to learn the languages better yourself. And I know it's going to be a blessing to other students, helping them to not have a frustrating experience with the language, but hopefully learn to love it and use it for a lifetime of ministry. So, all right, thanks so much. Let me know what I can do for you. All right.